Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Lisa Roy, and I'm the Director of Program Development at the Buffett Early Childhood Institute. I'm so excited today that we'll be talking about transitions. Tyler and Sarah, would you tell us about yourselves, please?
Hi, I am Tyler Hodeby. I am the principal at Westbrook Elementary School in Westside Community Schools located in Midtown Omaha. We are an elementary school that is K through 6, but we have an early childhood program that is on our campus as well. We have about 409 students, and our demographic breakdown is we are about exactly half white, half non-white, and our free and reduced percentage is 66%. So that is a little bit about our school. I myself, this is my 5th year as the principal here at Westbrook. And before that, I was an assistant principal for 5 years and a teacher for 12 years before that.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Piter. As Lisa had said, I'm the elementary principal in St. Paul, Nebraska. St. Paul is a community about 25 miles north of Grand Island. We are preschool through 6th grade. We have about 380 total students. St. Paul is a fortunate community to have our public preschool as well as several private preschools. And prior to my principalship here in St. Paul, I was a preschool and kindergarten teacher, and I also serve as the past president of the NAESP State Board.
Thank you both. I wanted to take this opportunity now just to talk about transition practices in the state of Nebraska. And we're so fortunate to have Sarah and Tyler talk about their work individually. That's my granddaughter, Ray. I actually have 2 granddaughters who started kindergarten this past year, a couple of months ago. And Ray is there, and we want to know, what's the big deal? Why is transition to kindergarten so important? And Tyler and Sarah will talk about that. I have listed a report that was done by the University of Colorado Denver's National P3 Center on transitions and some of the trends that have happened in the last 5 years, how it affects schools both in rural and urban areas. And I would recommend that you check it out. For Ray, you can see she's very excited. It's her first day. She had gone to preschool at the same school and also had been involved in a co-op preschool during the pandemic. She was prepared. She was familiar with the teacher, the environment, other students. She knew what to expect as far as routines, how to go to the bathroom, when she would eat and where she would eat, where drop off and pickup would be. She was better prepared for social interactions, such as sharing and taking turns. I, on the other hand, had a really hard time. My stress levels were pretty high. The day that I started kindergarten, my mother took me to the bus stop. And then she disappeared. She didn't say goodbye. I think she snuck away, actually. And I was terrified. So here I am climbing on a bus. I don't know any of the other children at all. I get to a school and I'm in the classroom and confused. And I'm still trying to figure out where my mother is, because obviously she's supposed to be where I am. She must work at the school. That's where she was going to every day. This is where adults hang out. But that was not the case. So it wasn't until I got home that I figured out my mother was not going to be going to school with me. It took me time to adapt to that new environment. My grandmother was my preschool teacher. She had been a teacher. Her father was the superintendent of what they called colored schools back in Frederick, Maryland. So I had one of the best teachers in the world for pre-K, but I wasn't ready as the oldest child and the oldest grandchild, who was pretty bossy, by the way, to enter into a kindergarten classroom where I would learn to share, where I had to raise my hand to answer the questions. And then again, I didn't start off as strong socially. I would say academically, I was very, very prepared for kindergarten and first grade. But unfortunately, it took me a while to figure out the culture, to adapt to the other students, and to feel like I belonged in that kindergarten setting. So what's changed from the time when I was in kindergarten to now? Well, milk and cookies and naps are the most important things. Finger painting I didn't put on here, but that art and music was a daily part of my kindergarten experience. I learned through play, and we had lots of experiential activities. There was no such thing as suspensions for kindergartners back then. We just went to the corner. If I didn't obey, I put my nose to the corner. There were less formal pre-K slots available during that time. Now, kindergarten's much more academic. There's more testing, there's standards. It's more like first grade when I went to first grade. You're expected to read by the end of kindergarten. And again, not only are there more pre-K slots, but they're in mixed delivery systems. So we have them in childcare and home and center-based settings. We have them at schools, and some have nannies. So I'm going to go over a little bit of information. This research was compiled by Jamlik Basar and Molly Colling at the Buffett Early Childhood Institute, looking at some of the transition practices that currently exist in the state of Nebraska. We have what's called the Preschool Development Grant, and one of the goals is to have communities coordinate locally designed mixed delivery systems that provide continuous care and meet the needs of family, and transitions fit within that. These are the data sources, and we'll go ahead and get started with showing you some of the data now. Schools holding open houses for parents and entering kindergartners are two of the top things that we do here in Nebraska, only followed by parents meeting individually with the kindergarten teacher. We do a little bit less around ensuring that, for instance, kindergarten teachers visit the home of each child that enters the school, or that children receive formal reading instruction prior to the start of school. Another thing, we obviously have what we call a mixed delivery system, as I mentioned earlier. So childcare providers can be an important part of the transition to kindergarten for children and families. And yet about 47% of children in childcare programs visit a kindergarten classroom. And then 36.7% of those children participate in orientation. So this is an opportunity that I really do see that Nebraska can grow in, that a kindergarten teacher can actually go and visit a childcare classroom before a child enters into their school. As far as reading to children before they enter school, we see that 56% of parents are reading on a daily basis to their children. That's a good thing, but something that we could increase if parents are given information on the importance of daily reading. And then there's these activities. As you can see, most of these are not applicable, but I think it's important that Nebraska, as we look at what we could do around transitions, really look at how we can increase the numbers of parents that are participating in orientation or having individual meetings before they start. Last but not least, what's different from when I went to school in kindergarten 53 years ago is that we have standards and expectations of what school readiness looks like. And we see that children, for the most part, know how to follow directions. But finishing tasks and being able to use a pencil and paintbrush, that's on the lower side. And so we have, again, a lot of work that we can do to ensure that parents understand what they can do to promote school readiness before a child enters school, and that we're working more directly with our mixed delivery system of childcare providers. So that's it for me. I'd love to turn it over to Sarah and Tyler to really tell you about what it looks like to do transition practices at their school and district. Sarah?
Perfect. Okay, so as I had mentioned in my introduction, my previous experience prior to being a principal was as a preschool teacher. And then after being a preschool teacher, I moved into the world of teaching kindergarten. Had some really great experiences, but always had questions lingering through those processes and years of experience. As a preschool teacher, I wonder what it is exactly that they do in kindergarten. And then as a kindergarten teacher, sometimes thinking to myself, I wonder if the preschool teachers know that we do this here or that we expect this here. So then when I came to St. Paul in my first year as a principal, the beginning of the school year in the kindergarten world, which my office is just right down here in this little world, it was kind of a nightmare. We had several children crying and screaming, and parents were bawling. And I think the first day it was, 11 o'clock noon before our last parent was finally felt comfortable enough leaving their child here at school. And it kind of continued for a couple of days with just that separation anxiety, if you will, for both parent and child. So after we kind of got into our first month of school, I started having conversations with our teachers. Okay, what do we need to do to make sure that the beginning of the school year is more comfortable for students, more comfortable for parents? And right away it was like, well, maybe we could get them into our building a little more than we already do. Great idea. Then we get into, the next month, and the teachers start making comments because we were fortunate to have 4 preschools in our community. Gosh, I really wish that, the Little Paws kids knew the stuff that some of the Little Lambs kids did. And I wish that the creative hand kids, so teachers were starting to specify or starting to pick up on specific skill sets that kids were coming from our preschools, but they weren't the same from all of those areas. And so all of that basically led us to first create our early childhood council. So it was an opportunity for all of our preschool teachers within our community, all of our kindergarten teachers, and myself in the beginning to sit around a table and talk about what does preschool look like for you in your world. And what does kindergarten look like for us? And what can we do to try and get all of our preschools on a little bit better of a same page, if you will. And then just having our kindergarten teachers understand, because not all kindergarten teachers had the opportunity to be a preschool teacher. And so kindergarten teachers sometimes didn't understand where these preschool kids had been. And so there was just a major disconnect. So sitting around the table, just communicating, really helped us all get on the same page and have a much better understanding of where our kids were, where they're coming from, and where they're going. So we a lot of times share things at council, like our preschool gold standards. We talk about the ASQ assessment that's given in a couple of the preschools, and then another preschool's like, wow, that's a really good idea. I think we're going to start doing that. And so just a lot of sharing. We talk a lot about just what do we need to what's going on in kindergarten. As Lisa had mentioned, it's changed a lot from what it used to be. And so just ensuring that there's just good communication around all of those different areas. Now, our council has kind of grown to include all of our special ed staff, our early development network folks. We have consulted with medical professionals just to let them know that, if they have concerns as a medical professional with the child's development, this is where they can reach out to. If they don't, a lot of times schools are the hub for everything. And so you kind of, forget that early development network is there, but schools are always here. And so if they reach out to us, we can connect them, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where we started. And then with the council, came conversations then around, okay, what can we do to get our preschool kids that are coming into kindergarten into our kindergarten world, into our big school, as the preschool kids call it. And from that, we developed our transition plan. And so every year, beginning in January, we start our preschool transition program, and we have a 45-minute window of time, and we offer 45 minutes in the morning and then 45 minutes in the afternoon for all kindergarten age eligible students to come into our kindergarten classrooms. And all of our kindergarten kids are present, our teachers are present, parents are welcome to join their child. A lot of parents stay for the first 2 or 3 transitions that we have. And it just really helps build that trust with the school. It also eases a lot of anxiety for everyone. So our focus in January is just, we want it to look a lot like preschool. We want it to look like what they're used to, what they love. So we just do center type stuff. There's magnet tiles and Legos and blocks and that type of stuff. And after the 45 minutes is up, they're on their way back to their preschool. And then in February, we put the focus on a desk activity so that the preschool kids can feel what it feels like to sit at a desk, what it looks like. They get to color, write names. They get to work on following directions with color shape bingo. Then in March, they get to go out and explore our playground, and they get to learn. The little kindergarten kids actually are the ones that teach them about all of the rules to the playground. We don't go up the slides, we go down, and we leave the rubber mulch on the ground. We don't pick it up, and all of those fun things. It's pretty cute to listen to them be the teachers, if you will. And then in April, they get to come eat lunch in our cafeteria, which is a big deal. Usually it's always a hot dog or a pizza day because everybody loves those. And they get to, experience carrying a tray and going through the salad bar line and then sitting at our cafeteria tables, which are different because they're used to tables and chairs. And so then in May, then we do our kindergarten roundup. And that's when the kids get to come all by themselves. We don't have regular kindergarten classes that day. And so the kiddos get to come and experience what kindergarten's going to be for 2.5 hours. They do some fun crafts. They have snack and milk. They get to go outside to recess. Lots of singing and dancing in the classroom, all those fun things. And we also, again, offer a morning and an afternoon for families as well. So that's our transition plan. A couple other things that we felt were really important was providing that education to parents. Because kindergarten doesn't look like what it used to. We hold our kindergarten registration, and it is an opportunity for parents to come and register their child for kindergarten, but it's also a wonderful opportunity for them to learn what kindergarten is all about. We show them videos of our reading curriculums. We talk about math, and really where that came from was we just had an overabundance of parents that wanted to early entrance exam their kiddos into kindergarten. So they were wanting to, send 4-year-olds, and that really stems from not always having enough daycare opportunities here in St. Paul. Which I think is not just a St. Paul issue, it's everywhere, really. And so, parents were wanting to send their kids early. And through that, the power of educating parents and helping them make an educated decision, it's really detoured that. And so now we have kids that are coming in more at that age 5, 6 world. And so they also can ask questions, and the teachers are there. They get to, present a lot on, their expectations in the classrooms. And then that's when we also set up our transition plan to parents. We let them know kind of what's going on. Another thing that we did with our preschools that kind of came out of our council was what can we do to increase students' phonemic awareness knowledge so that when they come into kindergarten, they have that really great baseline of phonemic awareness. And so we worked with our preschool teachers, and we purchased all of our preschools a phonemic awareness kit, basically, that they used. And it was a precursor to our reading program, but obviously was very developmentally appropriate for our preschool students. And so our reading coach would go over to the preschools and help them implement that process and program. And it worked really well. I think our kids come in really strong with that foundational phonemic awareness skill set, which then makes it a lot easier to start in on all those kindergarten, academic pieces. The last bit that I would talk about a little bit is we really also, out of the council came, we really need to take a step back in the first 3 weeks of kindergarten and not be so focused on the academic side of life. Yes, time is important and we have to be urgent in all that we do, but we really learned some valuable lessons in the first couple of years that sometimes we have to go slow to be able to go fast. And we know that kids have to be in, especially children that are young, have to be in a really good state of mind to be able to take in that information. And so we really wanted to slow down and kind of basically just simulate preschool, what they were used to. And so the first month of school, to be honest, kindergarten probably looks a lot more like preschool than it does kindergarten, just to help kids feel comfortable. And then as we get through that first month, it starts to kind of transition. And I wish we could always keep kindergarten like it used to be, but unfortunately with the pressure of standards and so on and so forth, that's not possible. But overall, I think our kids feel very comfortable. And so then by the time we are kind of all the way transitioned into more of kindergarten versus preschool, everybody's excited. They're jumping in. They can't wait for reading. They can't wait for math. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do in St. Paul, and probably, when you're setting up transitions, the biggest piece is I think everybody wants to do it. It's just nobody really sometimes knows how to get started. And you don't have to be an early childhood guru to figure it out. But I really do believe that the school and the principal in particular has to be the quarterback of the process. These ultimately are all of our kids. And these are kids that as a principal, you're going to be seeing and working with as well as parents for the next, 6 years. And so I think it's important to start off right away, building those strong relationships and making it a very comfortable place and safe place for everybody to want to be.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to turn it over to Tyler, but really appreciate how you encapsulated all that you do in such a short period of time, and appreciate your model. Thank you.
I was taking notes as much as I could because we're going to steal a lot of that stuff, Sarah. Thank you so much. At Westbrook, we have a unique situation here. Like I mentioned before, we have a early childhood center on campus, but isn't directly affiliated with our school. It's run by our foundation, and we also have a few slots there for peer models and or special education services. We also right down the street have got an early learning center for our district, where again, we have some peer model classrooms, and then we have got our special services for preschoolers are kind of out of that building. So a lot of the kids who start kindergarten, they don't necessarily go to those centers. We have about out of 56 kindergartners this year, we had 8 that went to our early childhood downstairs, and then another 4 or 5 from the early learning center down the street. And so for us, it is identifying who those kids are who are going to be coming to our school, kind of the whole child find idea, and then connecting with those families. And then how do we make the transition easy and accessible for families? But also, how do we maximize the kids that we do get from, how do we maximize the data and the collaboration with the kids that we do get from those centers? And so it started for us with, and a lot of this work is done by a team. I like what Sarah said, the principal's kind of the quarterback, right? But it takes a whole team to do it. And so very few of these ideas are mine. I just kind of help spearhead the implementation. So I want to be clear that our team is the one doing all of the great work here. But our family facilitator through our Buffett grant really kind of started the ball rolling with us connecting with our early learning center downstairs. And we noticed right away we couldn't always have the capacity to bring those kids up as much as we wanted. So we started sending our staff down there. It started with myself going down for story time once a month. Our assistant principal goes down for story time once a month. And then we started to expand. The school counselor, the kindergarten teachers would go read stories and introduce themselves to the kids. My background is in general music. I was a general music teacher when I was a teacher. And so I would go down and do music activities with the kids, bring my guitar, things like that. And that started those connections. We had our head custodian go over with the kids. And so then anytime he was over cleaning something up, all of the kids knew him and they began to feel comfortable and like they had a special connection to our school. And so that was really important. once we had established kind of a family engagement center here at the school, we started to have those kids up here into our school more. And so we would bring the 4-year-old class up for story time up here in our family engagement center, and we would still access those same adults. We would bring in guests from the community to do that as well. And we wanted to just make sure that they were starting to come up into the school a little bit more. And then from there, we started using some of the time that we had carved out for our SEL lessons or social emotional learning for those kindergartners to visit or those preschoolers to visit kindergarten classrooms every once in a while. And then they would start to attend specials. We have music, art, PE, and library, but we don't have it specifically for preschools in the curriculum. So our specials teachers would give up some of their time to have those kids so they could start experiencing that and they could start to learn what those expectations are. Because we also know that even though we only have 9 kids that transition up from our preschool program, those kids are going to school somewhere, right? And so they can benefit from that transition. We also did, like Sarah mentioned, we started bringing them over for lunch. So once a month, they wouldn't do the family style lunch in the chairs. They would come and eat in the cafeteria. And they do need to learn those things like how to hold the tray and how to walk through line and how to wait for just a second to get your food, how to express your needs to the people in the cafeteria. And so that is always kind of the highlight of I feel like the day that we have them in the cafeteria is always kind of like the highlight of their month. They're always so excited to be there. And then from then we started to really connect with our staff and train our staff. So our early childhood centers here at Westside implement the pyramid model. And so I joined their team, their leadership team, in some summer sessions. And then as we started to meet monthly to help with that transition between kindergarten and preschool. And so a few of the things that we've done with that is then educate our kindergarten teachers a little bit on what the pyramid model is and how they can help those kids transition. But then also we've adapted a few of the things that we do for early childhood, specifically the way that we track behavior incidences and functions of behavior to modify that so it looks a little bit more like it's at the elementary school, so that when we're having those conversations, we're kind of all talking about the same thing and looking at we have a shared understanding of what that means. We also have transition meetings every year with the early childhood staff for students that come up, especially those students that receive special services. And we just block out a couple of afternoons into evenings in April, and we'll bring those in, and the parents come to those as well so that we can learn a little bit more about their students and decide on the appropriate level of support that they need. We started bringing in parents a lot more of incoming kindergartners, things like incoming kindergarten parent night. My first year here at our school, we didn't have a great turnout for that. And once we started to dig into why, there were a couple of reasons. We have high mobility rate, especially during the summer. So we don't always know the kids in April that are going to be coming into our doors in August. And also we didn't have childcare available. So we kind of flipped the script and we turned that into a kind of a mini kindergarten roundup where the parents bring their kids, any age, any grade level. And then we have teachers do activities with the kids. They will do a little art activity and read a book with the kids while the administrators meet with the parents and talk to the parents about this is what school is going to look like. Here are some things that you can do to get your child ready for school. And it's just a great night, and our turnout has been fantastic for that ever since. And one of the things that we also do when we bring the kids in for that night is we want to engage them with the teachers as much as possible, because we do not do a traditional kindergarten roundup at our school. We were finding that when we did our kindergarten roundup in May, only about half of those kids were the ones that walked through our doors in August. So we had to rethink how are we going to do this so we meet the needs of our families, but that we're also able to serve all kids. So we do our kindergarten roundup now the first 2 days of school, first 4 days of school, really. So once we kind of find all of these families, we identify them, we connect with them. Half of those kids will come to kindergarten roundup on the first 2 days of school in August, and we have kind of all hands on deck support. Any additional staff that we have is there welcoming those families, welcoming those kids, and it's very much just learning how to do school. It's kind of like a little jump start for those kids. And then the second second set of 2 days, so the third and fourth day of school, we bring in the other group. And then on the fifth day of school is when everyone kind of starts together. And that also gives us a chance to assess the needs and skills of the kids, and then make appropriate groupings for the classrooms. And we tell families who their classroom teacher is there before that fifth day of school. Because it's so different, and we do it a little bit different, we try to connect with all of the families during the summer too, to let them know, do you understand which 2 days you're coming to school? Do you understand the reason, the purpose, the why? And so we do as many porch visits as we can with our families over the summer. And so myself, our assistant principal, every once in a while, if a kindergarten teacher is able to join us, we'll bring them with. We'll stop by and do porch visits with the families. And it's just a quick hello. We just knock on the door real quick, introduce ourselves. We always bring a bag of goodies for the kids. And in there is a book by Julia Cook about jumping into kindergarten. And it's a great book just about the social skills that you can be working on with your kids during kindergarten. And so our job is to really introduce parents to that book, ask them to read it to the kids before they start kindergarten. If they've got an older brother or sister that we know they're at home, we always ask the older brother and sister to read it to the kids a couple of times. And then we just have some fun summer activities, things in a goodie bag for the kids. And so it's a nice way to introduce ourselves to the families and to get to know and meet the families before the school starts, but also to ensure that people understand what day they're coming. Because sometimes there's a language barrier, sometimes there's a communication gap, and we want to make sure that people understand that they might not be coming to school on the first day of school. So that's something big that we do. We also, Sarah mentioned a little bit the separation anxiety that can happen with families. We try to be all hands on deck with that as well. And so our school counselor, the assistant principal, myself, we will connect with those families that are having a hard time separating. And I'm a big texter, so I'll get permission from the parents beforehand, and I'll say, hey, would you mind, can I text you a picture of your kid in class or at recess here in about half hour, 45 minutes? And I think that's a big step just for putting the parent's mind at ease, right? I'm a father too. I've sent 2 kiddos off to kindergarten, and I remember that feeling, and especially remember the feeling from my wife, who doesn't work in education, who says, okay, so now they just walk into the building and they disappear. And it's kind of like you said, Lisa, and I don't get to see what's going on or see what's happening. And especially during COVID, I think that's hard too, because we had to, for a year, do a lot of this stuff virtually. So the parents didn't get to come in and see the beautifully decorated classrooms and the color and all of those neat sensory items that you get when you walk into a kindergarten classroom. So that's been extra important, that we're connecting with families any way we can. And of course, 9 times out of 10, when you send that picture back to the parents that their kid's doing great and interacting with others and loving everything that's happening at school. So then we also make it a point to call every new family, not just kindergarten, but every new family here within the first 2 weeks of school, and just connect with them, seeing how they're doing. Do they feel like they belong here? Is there a school somewhere where they can trust the adults and trust that we can keep their kids safe and learning for the whole day? And those have really become insightful phone calls, because the first few years we did them, it was real quick, 30 seconds. Nope, we love it. Kids doing great. And now it's really, people are giving us some notes to take and connecting in those ways. And they have really deep, meaningful questions. And so more curriculum questions than ever. And so it's really been great to connect with families that way, and also establish that open line of communication. And then one of the neat things that we do at our school that really impacts the kindergartners, and after hearing Sarah talk, I think we're going to start to invite our preschool friends to this night too, is we do a family engagement night instead of a traditional curriculum night. So at our traditional curriculum night, first year we had like 26 people come into our building to hear the spiels from teachers. This last Thursday, we had 426 people enter the building for our family engagement night. And what we do is we kind of make it a little bit of a game. So the kids will walk in with their families. Again, if we can get kids in the building, we can get families in the building. And we hand them these little punch cards, and it has all the different areas of the school and different people to connect with in the school. So different than an open house where you would just typically come and see the adults and meet your classroom teacher. This is meant to connect your family with every single person in the school, And then that person in the school has got some sort of a handout or activity or a little elevator speech on how they can support your family. So it's not just meeting the classroom teacher. We want to make sure that our families know we educate the whole child. So we have little kindergartners that'll bring their families in and they'll take this punch card around. They got to get them all filled out, and then they bring it back for a prize. But they'll take their kids to go meet the music teacher and learn about what they do in music. Go meet the PE teacher, meet our school psychologist and learn why we have a school psychologist and what her role is. Meet our school counselor. We have our social worker at that night. So she talks to families about what she can do to help connect them back with the school. Speech and language pathologist. A lot of parents don't even know that we have that, and what maybe some of the age appropriate things they should be looking for in their child's speech are. And so these are all things that we want to do to connect families with the school and make sure that families feel that they're welcome. And I think next year we are going to start inviting our preschool friends to that too, because they can come up and see all of the great stuff that we're doing there as well, and get an opportunity to start connecting early with some of those adults in the school. So those are some of the things that we do to help transition. I know when I had the experience when I was a general music teacher, we added a preschool program to the school I was at. And so that was my first foray into early childhood. But I quickly began to learn those play-based experiences and engagement is what makes things work for those kiddos. So that's what we try to do too. We know that every preschooler comes into us with a blank slate. And so we need, or every kindergartner and preschooler, and we know that some kindergartners come to us for the first time never having any sort of schooling. So what Sarah said too about focusing on just the first couple weeks of school, maybe your academics aren't the best thing. We're still doing those screeners, but we're just teaching the kids how to do school. And in fact, every student in our school the first 2 weeks does expectation stations. And so we will travel around to every area of the school, and we will explicitly teach and practice what the expectations are in school. So just like Sarah said, we're out on the playground. We don't pick up wood chips. These are some safe ways to play. Here are 3 ways that you can resolve conflict on the playground. And we're just explicitly teaching those. And we'll come back and do that again after winter break as well. But that whole idea of, we teach kids how to read, we teach kids how to write, we teach kids how to add, but we also want to teach kids what the expectations are at school. We don't expect that anyone comes in knowing those. So those are what we do here at Westbrook to help with that transition. And we've got a ways to go, but I'm excited to learn more about the process and implement some of these ideas as well.
Thank you both. We're actually going to end with just letting everyone know that we have a contract with WestEd to produce toolkits. And these toolkits will be for parents, schools, and childcare providers on transitions to kindergarten. And with Tyler and Sarah's wonderful expertise, we'll make sure that some of their practices are highlighted and promoted within those toolkits. We do have a focus group of people that'll be working with us over this next year. Appreciate you both so much for sharing your time with us. I know you're so busy as principals, especially during this time of the year. Thank you so much.